So what I want to talk today about is drama. Some of us seem to be addicted to drama. We love drama. You know, there's a reason why storytelling is one of the most popular forms of entertainment. Whether it's storytelling in movies, plays, songs, and books, of course, and audio. People love a good story. Whether it's a story that happened 2,000 years ago or a story that's happening currently, if you learn the art of storytelling, or you have a natural talent for it, you'll captivate people. And in a story, you need drama. If there's no drama, it's not a story. Nobody's going to be going to a musical that sounds like, she woke up in the morning and had a coffee, got up, kids smiled, kvetched a bit, gave her a kiss goodbye. She got into her car, went to a few hours of work, came home. Kids came home smiling, told her all about her day. She went out shopping for a few hours, came back home, made supper. Kids were happy or not happy, and they fought with her. And her husband came home, hello, honey, and they lived happily ever after. Nobody's going to watch that. A good storyteller is somebody that knows how to create good drama, exciting drama. That's what makes a good story. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, are some of us just addicted to stories? Is that our problem? Is it our issue that we just need our story constantly to have action because otherwise it's not worth living? Because some of us honestly seem addicted to drama. I'm not saying that most people don't have drama, but gosh, as you get to know more and more people and you all know it, whether it's you yourself or a sibling you have or your child, there's always drama in that person's life. There's just always chaos. There's always something, the world's about to cave in on itself, things are just hectic, and you're like, whoa. Now, at some stage you could blame God. It's always, thank God for God. I mean, could you imagine if there was no one to blame? People who live through drama, they have a very good excuse. It's not my fault. Like, I didn't ask for this. God put me in this situation. I'm the victim. I'll be honest. I'm so the victim. I don't know what you're talking about. I attract drama. What are you talking about? I'm so peaceful. I'm so loving. I'm so forgiving. I don't attract drama. Was sagst du, Chainik? What are you talking about? And yet, everyone else is looking around saying, honey, you are a magnet for drama. Every week there's something, there's a phone call that you call up and it's like, oh my gosh, things are falling apart. And it's not that you're exaggerating, it's a real dramatic story, and this and he and she and the relative and the thus and the financials, and you're like, whoa, what a story. Now, it would be amazing if I never heard it before. But last week you called me and I also heard the story. And the week before I also heard the story. So at some stage I asked myself a simple question. What's the common denominator between all the stories? You. So, you might say that the common denominator between all the stories is God. Baruch Hashem, at least we could believe in God for something. At least we could blame Him for something. Could you imagine being an atheist and there's not even someone to blame when life is messed up? That's a nebuch. It's sad. When you believe in God and you can blame Him for why your life is so dysfunctional, it's mazel tov. And you sound faithful. It's sounding wonderful. Nachal, you could just sit there saying, it's my mazel. Obviously, in a previous life, I was, I had to go through some kind of completion. Now, yes, there are certain things that are in God's control. Some sicknesses are even in our control. We can take care of our health, but fine, some sicknesses, death, certain elements of financial. But there is a lot in our control. And being a person of faith does not mean you sit there saying, I did nothing wrong. Like it's all God. I don't know. God has designed for me a life of chaos. Leave God out of it. There's sometimes that talking faith is actually cheap. There's a famous Talmud that says that there's a time a person has to be a non-believer. When's that? When charity. If somebody comes to you and says, I need charity, so you think to yourself, 1 second. The person, anyway, by design, is supposed to be poor. I mean, if God wanted the person to be comfortable, he would have taken care of it, right? So, by default, the person has to be poor. It's not my problem. Says the Torah, stop being a believer. Go help the person. Stop blaming things on God. The same thing over here. When our lives attract so much drama constantly, stop blaming God. There's an energy going on. There's something, we're almost addicted to live in stories. And I know people, you know, every one of us, either you are this person or you know somebody who is totally addicted to drama. They will just literally take a story and make it so much more dramatic, not by lying, just by their decision making and their choices, etc. Everything just becomes all the more tzedakah. Unbelievable, talent. And then they're always the victim. They're sobbing, they're falling apart, they're crying, they're bitter tears. Can you leave? Again. You're like, dude, my dear friend, what is up? Don't you realize that this is happening to you constantly? What about you is attracting it? And until a person's not willing to say, I am the problem, we're done. There's no one to talk to. And I've realized that so much in my life and in the people I interact with. Until a person's willing to say the words, it is my problem, there's nobody home. And they will continue attracting drama, and they'll blame everybody. It will always be the other person's fault. Why there's drama in their life, why there's chaos, why there's tension, why there's hectic variables. I got up in shul a few weeks ago, I said something a bit controversial. I said, if you find yourself in more than 1 or 2 court cases in your lifetime, unless you're a judge or a lawyer, that's a small problem. If you're in 5 court cases in your lifetime, something's up. Friend, something's up. How is it that all the court cases came to you? Most of us resolve things. Yes, there's some exceptional things. Yeah, well, some people will go through 1 or 2 court cases. But after some stage when you're just spending a big time of your life in court, you have to ask yourself, what's the common denominator? I know everyone's, forgive the French, screwing you over. It's all them. This person stole your inheritance, and this person stole your job, and this person kicked you out of school for no reason, and this school is out to get you, and that shul and the rabbi is a misery, and I have to take him to the Beth Din. At some stage, you're taking everybody in your life to the Beth Din court. What is your problem? Ask yourself that question. And by the way, I'm not talking about anybody specifically. Yes, dealing with different things, but this is not what I've been dealing with. I have been dealing with a lot of drama, and I ask myself, what is up with drama? Yeah, we all go through it. We all have drama in our life. There's certain characters in our life, but when you're always getting it, when it's always coming at you, maybe it's you creating it. Maybe just look in the mirror and say, what is about me that I turn every simple situation into a mess? How do I manage to take things that could be resolved so simply and turn them so messy? Ownership. It's one of the hardest things a person can do, and one of the most rewarding things a person can do. When a person decides to take ownership on their life. Just look at the mirror and say, what are the patterns in my life? We all have patterns. Some of them are great patterns. For example, you're very good at building close friendships. You just have a pattern in it. You've had close friends when you were younger, you had close friends in middle age, you had close friends in older age, you've had close friends throughout. You have a pattern, you know how to build friendships. So you look and say the same, okay, something I'm doing right. Try to figure it out. But then we all have patterns that aren't right. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are just a little dysfunctional, whatever. It's not the end of the world. But we all have those patterns we have to look at and sit there saying, what is up with this pattern? I decide to diet, and then I break my diet. I decide to have, healthy marriage, and now I'm on my third marriage and I can't get my act together. What's the pattern? I fought with one of my children, now I'm fighting with all four of my children. And it's always their fault. You're right. And really, all your kids have the worst DNA possible, and it's your spouse's fault. How did the husband say? When the kid asked, Dad, where do I get my genius from? He says, you get it from Mom. I still have mine. It's very, whatever. It's that person's fault. My kids are all out to get me, and it's Mom's fault. It's Dad's fault. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe. Why is that such a scary thing? Do you think it makes you less of a person? No, on the contrary, that makes us mature. When a person can take ownership and say, I have a problem, and I will go discuss with a friend or an honest person that knows me or a therapist until I figure out what is my repetitive behavior. Why am I falling into the same pit every single time? But nobody tells us to take ownership. No. It's our parents' fault. It's our school's fault. It's the varsity's fault. It's the country's fault. Just think about how many messages we're told every day blaming outside influences. South Africa, it's a mess. The economy is corruption. BEE. The education system's not what it used to be. Parents don't know how to parent. I can't afford therapy, or my therapist was just out to get me. I mean, just think about it. Any person who wants to have excuses why their life is a mess has all the excuses. I have not met anybody who has not been hurt in life. So if you want to have an excuse why the blame, take it. Here are all the excuses. Sei mir gesund. Enjoy them. Write up a list, stare at it every single night, hug it, cry on it, put it on your pillow and fall asleep on it. But come on, at some stage, take ownership. It's your life. Nobody else is living your life. We only get to live our own lives. And if we're going to spend every moment blaming somebody else for a different element of our life, at some stage, okay, so die now. I mean, there's no point of living. It's anyways you're going to be carrying on other people's dysfunction. Don't you believe that the mere fact that nobody's forcing you this moment to do anything. Yes, their influence might have a strong push on you, etc., but we have choice. We have our lives. Nobody tells us what to do. It's just narrative where we just hear over and over and over. You're not in control of your life. There's always somebody to blame. There's always somebody to sue. There's always somebody to cry about. There's always somebody to vent about. And yes, but that's life. You want to have a world where everybody treats you like Gan Eden? In the cemetery. I'm not justifying the perpetrator and blaming the victim. It's not about victim. Yes, there are a few victims in this world, people who are really victimized. But most of us, we're not victims. We haven't gone through serious abuse. Some have. I'm talking about most of us. The mother was a good meshugya, and the tata was a bit off the wall, and there was financial struggle, and it was okay, and that hurts. So let's work through it. But that's it. Blame and blame and blame and feel sorry for ourselves. Taking ownership on one's life is one of the most empowering things a person can ever do. And I talk from experience because for many years I didn't take ownership on my life. Yes, I was young and stupid, and I'm still young and stupid, but everything that didn't work, I had a great reason. But somehow, at some stage, my life started turning around. It's not perfect, but it started turning around. And then when I realized the only difference that happened is I turned around. I changed my patterns. Till my early 20s, I don't think I had more than one or two real friendships. The last 10 years of my life, I've had, and I still have, many, many solid friendships. What's the difference? I met better people than I met then? Maybe. Or maybe I became a better friend. Maybe I learned how to stop feeling so sorry for myself. I became a better friend, so I attracted better friends. Maybe. The world is not full of bad people out to destroy us. If we're just attracting negative people in our life, if we're just attracting drama, it's our problem. How is it that you have the mazel to meet every scoundrel on the planet? When I was 20, somebody robbed my business and managed to fool me out of $1,000,000. Then when I was 30, I had another. Some story. You've had a story every decade of your life. What's the common denominator? Your naivete. No, so take ownership on it. Nothing wrong to be naive, but at least don't blame the other people. I met one guy, he was abusive. Fine, okay, that's a tragedy. I met another guy and he was abusive. Hey, 1 second here. And then when you met the third person who was also abusive, the only common denominator is abuse and you. That's not blaming the victim. Obviously, that doesn't justify the guy. But what in the world is attracting you to this person? What in the world makes you want to get married to this person? Why are you... Didn't you see in 5 seconds that the guy's a gangster, a mobster? That the guy is just violent? Didn't you see that the person doesn't have boundaries? That the person doesn't respect you? Didn't you see it? No. Then you're the problem. He's the problem, but I'm not dealing with him. But we're talking, the two of us. You're the problem. But today we have words like blaming the victim. We have words like shame. They've been through so much. And it's very much affected by, the culture in America, maybe the extreme left, that how many victimhoods do you have? What gender are you? What color skin are you? What's your life story, etc. Like we live in a culture that almost like we dig into Wiffel Tzadis Hutman, like how messed up our life is. But at some stage, isn't it just too much? Isn't it just too much to live with? Sometimes I think I could help people. That's what I went into my job for. I'm in the people helping business. But I'm realizing more and more and more, I'm not helping nobody. Yeah, I could give a person a little piece of advice. I could give a person a little money. People help themselves. And until we don't want to help ourselves and get out of our patterns, we're talking to the wall. And the moment I accept that I can't change anybody who doesn't want to be accepted is the moment I'm at peace. Because otherwise this is a very frustrating business, dealing with people who cry to you but don't allow you to help them. And listen, I'm not the world's biggest genius. That's why I have people I have to talk to about my life. In general, very few of us are geniuses for our own lives. We all need advisors. We're too subjective to our lives. The point is not how smart we are. The point is, are we clever enough to take advice of others? And are we clever to face the truth when the truth is pointed out to us? Do we have a friend? Do we have a mentor? Do we have a person we respect who can tell us the truth between our eyes and will acknowledge it? We won't blame, and we'll just say, you know what? I gotta do better. I'm done. I cannot live like this anymore. This is ridiculous. I want to get out of this vicious cycle. The only difference between tshuva, repentance, I know it's 6 months away from Rosh Hashanah, we shouldn't be talking about this, but it's always a good time to return. The only difference between a person who returns and not is that one of them acknowledges that there's one to return. There's where to return and what to return from. And the other person never acknowledges it. And if I don't acknowledge I have work to do, I'm not going to do anything. My kids know that the statement they hear the most often at home is, don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Not because I never do it. Believe me, I feel sorry for myself all the time. I'm actually feeling sorry for myself right now. I can't go to my sister's wedding. I'm feeling very sorry for myself. But at some stage, after you got, you indulged in the self-pity, next, what next? Shir, how much? How much can we? And the question is, actually, do we even want to be better? Do we want to be more successful? Because if we really wanted to have a better quality of life, I believe we all can. We can all better our lives. There is almost nobody in this world that it's only in God's hands. I mean, unless the person's literally, on death's door with nothing, etc., and it's all up to God. There is a lot in our life that has nothing to do with God. Not that God is not involved, but He chooses to step aside and allow us to make choice. So no matter how messed up your life is, and yes, some of the things are God's control. Can't get a job. Fine. But how much of it is you? Are you ambitious? Are you upping your game? Are you making yourself so attractive as a candidate for a job? Why not? Why aren't you? Don't you think if you up your game and people around you start realizing, wow, there's a good energy that somebody will pass your name on to somebody else who might pass on the name to somebody else? But if you sit there indulging in self-pity and, I can't, nobody wants me, do you really think that narrative makes you attractive to a potential friend who might tell a potential employer? It's not about blaming, it's about saying there is what we can do. Your marriage is shocking, you married a mobster, mele. You're not getting divorced, right? Whatever, if that's what your decision is. So can you up your game by 5%? So do it. The marriage will never be 100%, but why does it have to be at 12? What's wrong with 17%? Your relationship with your kids never going to be flourishing. They're a narcissist and they're absolutely a misery and they're out for your money and they can't wait for you to die to take your money. Fine. Can you have the relationship a little bit? A little better? There is so much in our control if we're willing to acknowledge. But there is nothing more frustrating than when we don't acknowledge it. And there's nothing more frustrating than dealing with somebody who's not willing to acknowledge. In my book, it's one of the biggest character flaws a person could have. Not because it makes them a bad person, but because it hinders their growth. There's no one home. You can't talk to somebody who's not willing to acknowledge their problem. And if a person cannot change, then they're frozen. And if they're frozen, that's a terrible character flaw. To not move, to not grow, it's a terrible character flaw. We're here to grow, otherwise why wake up another day? I can't become a better person tomorrow, then why? Why wake up? To have a deja vu of today? To have another Groundhog Day? Why? We're here to grow. We're here to have the potential to be better. And the only way I can be better is by acknowledging I did wrong. And the only way I can acknowledge I did wrong is if I take ownership on it. I made a mistake. I'm sorry to myself or to the other person, and I will do better. I want to get out of this pattern. No matter what it takes, I want to break out of this. When a person decides they want something, the Kabbalah tells us, Jewish mysticism tells us, Koach haratzon, the power of will is one of the most powerful energies a human being has. It's in the source of the soul. It's in the gut. It's your deepest place. There's two great things that Kabbalah tells you sits at the heart of each person: willpower and pleasure. I'm not talking about only physical pleasure. We're just talking about the idea of pleasure. And those two drive unbelievably, drive our lives. The question is, how much do you want to get at? Do you actually want a better life? Do you want to be in a better financial situation in a year? Do you want a better marriage in a year? Do you want a better relationship with your kid in a year? You can. Other than davening, and yes, continue to daven. But beyond davening, there's a lot more you could do. And ask the people who know you to be honest with you. And they'll tell you. Because we all have growth. We all have what to grow. Unless you're an angel. And there's no compliment in being an angel. Because you're human. Unless you're an angel, you're not perfect. And if you're not perfect, there's what to get better at. So let's do it. Let's do it. Comes this year, Pesach, let's focus on something in our character and just say, I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of just of the drama. I'm tired of drama. I don't want to live a life that is just one case after another case after drama after drama. The moment I sit there saying, I want a life of menuchas hanefesh, of inner peace, of serenity, chase that. You'll get there. But the question is if you want it. Because really, if you wanted it, you would have made better decisions. You obviously want something more than that. You want the drama. You really, really want a happy marriage? Really? Then why did you make that choice yesterday? You prefer being right over being happy. Okay, so let's be honest. That you don't want a happy marriage. You want it, but it's not your single biggest drive. You have a drive that's even more powerful than that. And that's your drive to be right. What do you really want? Because if you know what you want and you're articulate to yourself, you will chase that with every fiber of your being and you'll get there. But if I spend my lifetime saying I want things, but I really don't want it, then yes, 10 years later I look around and I have not accomplished my goals. How can I accomplish it? I didn't even know what they were in the first place. Shkoyach, everybody.